Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Always exciting to dive into a new topic.
And this time, we're going back in time a bit.
Oh, how far back are we going?
Back to 1967,
1967, okay.
to Bluff Creek, California.
Bluff Creek, Bigfoot territory.
Exactly. We're tackling the Patterson Gimlin film.
Right, that grainy footage.
Yep, the one everyone's seen at least a glimpse of.
So are we going to determine if it's real or fake once and for all?
Well, we're going to examine all the evidence, all the different analyses. Hear some firsthand accounts.
Should be interesting to see what people who are actually there had to say.
Definitely. And we'll even see what Hollywood thinks about it all. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
First, can you just set the scene for us? 1967, Bluff Creek. What's going on?
Well, 67 was a pretty wild year overall, you know. Lots of change happening.
Right. Socially, politically. It was a turning point for a lot of things.
Exactly. But in the midst of all that, there was this growing fascination with the unexplained.
People looking for something beyond the everyday, maybe?
I think so. And Bigfoot sightings, they were popping up all over the place, especially in the Pacific Northwest.
And Bluff Creek was like the epicenter.
Yeah, you could say that. Tons of reports, footprints, strange sounds, even some claiming to have seen the creature itself.
So into this hotspot come Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, our filmmakers.
Now, these guys weren't just some random dudes with a camera.
Right. They had some experience that's relevant here.
For sure. Both experienced horsemen, rodeo background, and all that.
Makes sense when you think about where they were and what they were doing.
Absolutely. You needed to be comfortable in that kind of terrain.
And Patterson, he was especially into Bigfoot.
Right, yeah, totally obsessed. He was really into the work of Ivan T. Sanderson.
Sanderson. Wasn't he a zoologist who wrote about
cryptids? Yeah, he wrote about Yetis, Bigfoot, all sorts of creatures like that, things people thought were mythical.
Right, right. So Patterson was already deep into this world. He'd even written a book about Bigfoot, hadn't he?
He had, the year before, actually.
So he definitely wasn't just casually interested.
Not at all. And this is where it gets a little tricky. Because they went to Bluff Creek specifically to film a docudrama about Bigfoot.
A docudrama.
Okay. Which makes you wonder, was he genuinely trying to document a real creature? Or was this all just a setup for a hoax?
Yeah, you have to wonder if the docudrama was a convenient cover story.
It's definitely a question that hangs over the whole thing.
Okay, so they're out there, cameras rolling. What happens that leads to the famous footage?
Well, according to them, it was October 20th. They were riding along this dry creek bed when they came across a big overturned tree.
Okay, a tree. So
and this jumble of logs, like something had moved them around.
Okay, getting a bit spooky now.
And that's when they saw her, the creature they would later call Patty.
Patty.
Yeah, Patty.
Catchy. So what did this Patty look like?
Well, they described her as covered in dark, reddish-brown hair. Patterson said she was over 7 feet tall.
Wow, over 7 feet. That's massive.
And here's a detail that caused a lot of debate later on. She seemed to have prominent breasts.
Breasts. Okay, that's definitely different. So what happened then? I mean, seeing something like that, they must have been stunned.
You'd think so, right? But Patterson, according to him, his horse gets spooked, rears up.
Oh, wow.
He's totally caught off guard, scrambling for his camera, shouting, "Cover me!" to Gimlin.
Talk about an adrenaline rush.
Totally. So the footage is shaky. He even falls to his knees at one point, but he manages to get about 59 seconds of film.
59 seconds. That's a decent chunk of time.
It is. And then Patty, she glances back at them and just walks off into the woods.
Just like that.
Just like that.
And they just let her walk away. Didn't try to follow or anything?
Well, Gimlin goes after her on horseback, but Patterson's a little more cautious. He's worried there might be, a mate or something.
Oh, that's a scary thought.
Right. So he gathers their other horses, then catches up with Gimlin. And once they're back together, they go back to where they saw her and start filming the tracks.
Hold on, wait. They filmed the tracks after seeing the creature and chasing it. Wouldn't those tracks have been there before?
That's one of the big issues people have with the whole thing. Because, get this, a Forest Service crew was actually in that exact area a few days before.
Seriously?
Yep. Looking for Bigfoot tracks specifically.
Yeah.
They found nothing.
No tracks at all.
Nope. But then, a few days after the alleged encounter, a researcher named Robert Titmus shows up and finds 10 really clear footprints even mapped out the creature's movements based on the trackway.
So no tracks one day, perfect prints a few days later. This is getting suspicious.
That's putting it mildly.
Okay, so conflicting reports about those tracks. But what about the film itself? Did anyone actually analyze it to see if it was faked?
Well, you gotta remember this was 1967. Technology to analyze video just wasn't what it is today.
Right, like forget AI and all that.
Exactly. And the scientific community, they weren't exactly lining up to study Bigfoot.
I can imagine.
So who did take a look at the film?
Yeah, what do they say?
One of the first was Bernard Heuvelmans, a zoologist from Belgium. Actually, he was a big believer in cryptozoology, hidden animals.
Oh, so this guy was open to the idea.
He was. But even he was skeptical of this film.
What that?
Well, he thought the creature's hair patterns looked off and the way it moved just didn't seem natural to him.
Like it could be a person in a suit.
That was his thinking.
But come on, an ape suit in 1967. Wouldn't that look totally ridiculous?
You'd think, right. And that's actually a big argument for the film being real. A lot of people, especially from Hollywood, said there's no way they could have made a suit that convincing back then.
Interesting. So if it wasn't a suit, what was it? Did any scientists think it might be a real Bigfoot?
There were a few, but even they had their doubts. One was John Napier, primatologist, studied apes for years.
So this is someone who really knows how primates move.
Exactly. And Napier actually thought Bigfoot could exist.
Okay.
But he pointed out some things about Patty's movements, her gait, that just didn't fit for a creature that large.
What do you mean?
So, how a primate walks, it's connected to their anatomy, right?
Right.
Napier said Patty's strides, they were too long for something that tall and heavy. Didn't make sense biomechanically.
So even someone who believed Bigfoot might be real wasn't convinced by this footage.
Right. It just didn't quite add up for him.
Did anyone try to actually recreate those movements, see if a human could pull it off?
Years later, yeah. Two gait analysts, Jessica Rose and James Gamble, they tried to replicate Patty's walk.
Oh, wow, like in a lab setting.
Yeah, controlled environment, trying to see if they could match those movements, especially that weird stride.
And were they able to?
They got close, copied some parts of her gait, but they couldn't match everything perfectly, especially that long stride Napier talked about.
So even with modern tech, they couldn't fully recreate it?
Nope, which seems to support the idea that it could be a genuine creature.
Yeah, that makes sense. But hold on, didn't you say there was more to the story?
Oh yeah, things get even weirder. Two researchers, Cliff Crook and Chris Murphy, they spent years on this film.
Wow. Dedicated.
They were convinced it was real at first, used computer enhancement to try to get more detail from the footage.
Makes sense. And what did they find?
They found what looked like a zipper on the creature's waistline.
A zipper. Come on. You're kidding, right?
I wish I was. But there it was, this faint line that looked exactly like a zipper when they zoomed in.
So Scooby-Doo ending. It was Ugman Jenkins in a suit all along.
Pretty much. Crook and Murphy, after that, they were sure it was a hoax. Someone in a really well-made suit.
But what about all those Hollywood folks saying you couldn't fake something like that back then?
That's the thing, it's all so contradictory. And some of those Hollywood experts actually weighed in on this film specifically.
Really? Like who?
Bill Munns, for one, he did special effects for years.
So he'd know if it was fakeable.
Exactly. And Munns, he was convinced the Patterson Gimlin film was genuine.
What made him so sure?
He was incredibly thorough, analyzed the footage, tried to recreate it himself the whole 9 yards. He said the way Patty moved, her muscles, the way her hair shifted, even tiny anatomical details, it all pointed to a real creature, not some guy in a suit.
So we've got scientists with doubts, special effects pros saying it's impossible to fake, and then this zipper that throws everything off again. I don't even know what to think anymore.
Welcome to the world of Bigfoot research. It's a constant back and forth.
So where do the hoax theories actually start? Who are the main suspects in all this?
Well, the most obvious one is probably Roger Patterson himself.
The filmmaker. Why would he fake it?
Who knows? Maybe he wanted fame. Maybe he thought he could make money off of it. Maybe he was just so obsessed with Bigfoot that he decided to create his own evidence.
But wouldn't he have admitted it at some point? Especially when he got sick, facing his own mortality.
You'd think so, right? But he never did. Some people say that means he really believed it was genuine.
Makes you wonder.
It does. But then you've got researchers like Greg Long who dug into Patterson's past and found some shady stuff.
Like what?
Seems like he might have faked Bigfoot footprints years earlier.
Ooh, so maybe a pattern of behavior.
Could be. So was he a dedicated hoaxer? Or did he truly believe he captured something real? Tough to say.
Okay, so Patterson suspect number 1. Who else is on the list?
Well, decades after the film comes out, this guy Bob Heironimus pops up claiming he was the one in the suit.
Wait, seriously, just out of the blue.
Pretty much. Said Patterson paid him to wear this ape suit for the film, and he kept quiet all those years, hoping for a bigger payday that never came.
Okay, but wouldn't people have recognized him? And what about the suit itself?
That's the thing, it gets messy. Some of Hieronymus's family members back up his story, say they saw an ape suit at his house around that time. But the description they give doesn't match up with another claim.
Oh, no, not another one.
Oh, yeah. This guy Philip Morris, he owned a costume company, said he sold Patterson an ape suit for a prank.
So 2 different suits.
Sounds like it. But Morris never actually proved he sold the suit, and when people tried to recreate the film using a similar suit, it looked nothing like the real thing.
All right, so 2 guys saying they provided the suit, neither story really checks out, and Patterson never confesses. This is getting ridiculous.
It really is. And there's one more name to throw into the mix, Ray Wallace.
Okay, who's he?
Turns out, after he died, his family revealed he'd been planting fake Bigfoot tracks for years just to mess with people.
So a Bigfoot prankster.
Basically. And some people think he might have been involved with the Patterson Gimlin film too, maybe tipped off Patterson about Bluff Creek, maybe even gave him the suit.
But no proof.
None whatsoever. Wallace never said anything about it while he was alive, so we're left with a lot of maybes and what-ifs.
Conflicting stories, multiple potential hoaxers, and a film that no one can definitively explain. Is there anything that could tell us for sure if it's real or fake?
Sadly, no. That's the mystery of it all. And that's why we're here, right? Going through the evidence, trying to figure out what we believe.
Right. But even if we can't say for certain, does the possibility of a hoax mean we should just forget about Bigfoot altogether? Dismiss every sighting, every story?
That's a good question. I mean, if this famous film, the one everyone thinks of when they think of Bigfoot, if that's fake,
Right.
does that mean everything else is too?
I think it's important to remember the Patterson Gimlin film. It's just one piece of the puzzle.
One piece, yeah.
Even if we decide it's a hoax, that doesn't mean the whole idea of Bigfoot is wrong. Doesn't invalidate all the other reports, the sightings, the stories.
So all those people who say they've seen something in the woods, a large, hairy creature,
Exactly.
those could still be true.
Think of it this way. If someone forges a famous painting, a masterpiece everyone thought was real,
Okay.
does that mean all art is fake?
No, of course not.
There are still genuine works of art out there, right?
Right.
Same thing with Bigfoot. Even if the Patterson Gimlin film is a clever trick, it doesn't erase the possibility that something real is behind the legend. Okay, I see what you mean. But that still leaves us with a problem, doesn't it?
What's that?
How do we tell the difference? How do we know what's real and what's fake when it comes to these sorts of things?
It's the million-dollar question, for sure.
Yeah.
We have to be critical, look at each piece of evidence carefully. We can't just believe everything we hear, but we also can't dismiss everything out of hand.
Yes, we have to be careful.
We do. We got to ask questions. Who's making the claim? What did they actually see? Is there anything to back up their story? Any physical evidence?
Like being a detective, almost.
Exactly. Gather the clues, try to piece together the truth.
But sometimes even detectives hit dead ends.
They do. And with something like Bigfoot, the truth might always be out of reach. But that doesn't mean we should give up.
So keep searching, keep asking questions, even if we never get a definitive answer.
I think so. The search itself has value. It forces us to think critically, to challenge our assumptions, to explore the unknown.
I like that. So even if we can't say for sure whether Bigfoot is real or not, this whole topic, it makes us think.
It does. And who knows, maybe someday we will find that undeniable proof.
The smoking gun.
Yeah, the thing that settles the debate once and for all.
Until then, the mystery lives on.
It does. And that's part of what makes it so fascinating.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into the Patterson Gimlin film.
Seems like we covered a lot of ground.
We did, went through the evidence,
No.
looked at the different arguments, and yeah, we ended up with more questions than answers.
The nature of the beast, I guess.
But hey, maybe that's okay. The mystery continues, the debate goes on.
And people will keep searching.
They will. So to everyone listening, what do you think? Is the Patterson Gimlin film real? A genuine Bigfoot caught on camera? Or is it all just a very elaborate hoax? We'd love to hear your thoughts.